Another lovely day for us, like. You see it, eh? And it has a layer of sap and a layer of heart in it as well. And this was one piece, because that piece matched onto that piece there, see? And,
right.
I split it in half again with the chainsaw, so I'll get 2 pieces out of it. But there was a crack running down the centre here, you know. But it's not very deep at this point down there. So I was thinking of making some sort of maybe a plait or something, but I think I'm going to go for twin corus, you see, because this will go up the other way. The reason it's up that way is because the crack at the bottom, I don't want it to open anymore. So if I tip it up that way, the water will run down and it'll dry more evenly, you know, because it always dries at the end. See this end grain here with a crack in it? So the end grain dries first and it spreads, you know. But it only moves so far. And this wood is extremely heavy and extremely dense. This is the nearest thing, I suppose, that New Zealand has to ebony or something like that. Massively heavy, but also it is still full of sap. But it's a very hard wood, but while it has the sap in it, it's actually quite easy to carve, you know. And the beauty of this piece of wood, it's got the heart, which is dark, and the sap, which is sort of honey coloured. It's a wee bit discoloured because the chainsaw has been down it, and the chainsaw is oil lubricated, you see. So I'm just going to do a similar thing to what I've got down there, a koru round here, in the old universal koru shape, which I'll just sort of basically draw out with a piece of chalk or something like this. So yeah. Like that, so just run it round in a sort of a circle thing like that. I love the koru because, see here I've worked on this piece of, it's pretty dusty, but this is a lovely piece of kauri. And I was asked to do something for an exhibition, and it was called The Space Between. And I thought, well, how do I work my korus into that? So I did one koru running into another koru. It doesn't matter if it's this way, sideways, or however you have that. It's a single block, and I just took all this other wood away, see? And on the back, I wrote the space between, where everything reaches out to each other, all as one. And that's what I thought about the space between, because the space between is full of everything, really. You know what I mean?
So this wood is green, you say, right now?
It's green, yeah. It's just been cut down. One of the guys from the golf club had to cut it down at his house. He was upset about having to cut it down, but it had to go. So they're always grateful to find a place for where the wood can go and get some use out of, you know. So because nobody really likes to cut down a new tree, if you like.
What sort of age do you think the tree is?
Well, it's only a young tree, but it's got quite dense lines on it, and every year is a year line, you know what I mean? So, I don't know. I don't really know. But for instance, that great big hook over there, that's just part of the heart, and there's just so many lines in that, and possibly thousands of lines. So that possibly 1,000 years old, that tree over there.
So is that a piece of swamp kauri?
No, that's just a piece of ordinary kauri.
That was just found above ground?
That's been cut down in the days when you could still cut down kauri trees, you see. And that's a piece of the heart. And the heart, you know, if you look at the end grain of the tree, and this is the sap and this is the heart. So that's the heart part of a tree. And it was also, when a heart is round, if you're looking at the end thing, it's the bottom of the heart, because I can tell by the spacings of the year lines that come round. And so that is from the bottom of the heart. So that the heart of that tree was wider than that wood is there, because it's the bottom. So it must have been an absolutely immense tree. And when I went to the shed where this tree was, or this piece of wood was, and the people said you could have it. It was just a gift, you know. It made me cry because the magnitude of the gift, and also the magnificence of the wood. So it made something that would show how immense that the tree was, and it does encompass that a bit, you know, because only get one chance at a piece of wood that big, don't I?
Yeah, yeah.
And all I know, it was milled locally down at Totra North at a place called Lanes. Over 35 years they've had it. They don't really quite know when.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's been sitting in the shed all that time.
Well cured, well dried.
Well dried. It's funny because there was a wee strip of sap on one corner of it that ran the whole length of it. It was like gun barrel straight. And that sap had turned to like wheat bix because the boar had got into it and eaten it out, whereas the heart remained pure because they won't go into it. Ironically, in this hardwood here, got in here, and this is New Zealand's hardest wood, the puriri, that is the puriri moth's grub that is burrowed into there. And the puriri moth is our biggest New Zealand moth, and it's a beautiful lime green colour. It's absolutely a gorgeous thing. And their grub falls into our strongest tree. And there's bits of green in this wood, actually. There's a green tinge in here, and I wonder if it has something to do with the grub eating that pigment that also ends up with the metamorphosis of a butterfly coming through, you know.
Right. The environment influences its colour.
What it's consumed, you know.
Yeah. So, when did you begin your carving? Like how did you come about to?
Well, about the wood is in the family. My ancestors came from Scotland, and they set up sawmills down the Catlins, which is the east coast of the South Island down there. And then my grandfather was a fine woodworker and a carpenter, and then my dad always had a fully equipped workshop, and he, made little duck punts and things like that. And my grandfather discovered that if he gave me a totra post and a chisel as a sort of hyperactive kid, I suddenly went all quiet. I'd spend hours chipping away at that piece of wood. And indeed, I think it's in our cells, like every village had a carver, a potter, and something like that. So it's something very basic about it, isn't it, And yes, I do find it if I'm wound up, I come there and whack a bit of wood and, it's great. And I mean, time goes by, I think about all sorts of stuff. And I look down and think, oh, it's, because you've been doing it. I suppose I started when I was 7 or 8. So, you're talking 55 years.
Yeah, and you can switch off, right?
Yeah. In fact, I sometimes, of course, I don't see that well without glasses, but you can see form quite well without having to really concentrate on the graining or getting lost in the grain and things like that. So quite often I carve without my glasses, but when you get intricate, of course, you put your glasses on and that. But it's also, apart from being peaceful to the soul, it's active for the body.
So you look at, when you see a piece of wood, you let it speak to you, as it were, of what form is going to come out of the piece?
I try to make the best I can out of the piece of wood, and I try to use the most of the piece of wood I've got. Sometimes I'll make specifically things because I'm ordered, but the other times, you see, if I had a big lump of wood, I wouldn't make a little strand of seaweed out of it because you're just going to have to shift too much, So a big bulk of wood might do something that you don't have to shift so much. It might be a head or a person or something like that. So yes, you do something like that. And also, experience shows me that korus do well, things with hearts do well. You carve hearts. I've sold so many hearts, things with hearts, and then they're just things that we drew as kids because we know they're important for us, So there was an old piece of pine there and an old piece of kauri. And I'll put that into that,
Beautiful.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool. And wood is easily malleable, And the other thing when you're working with wood, if you've got a knot in it, you won't want to be carving the knot because it's so hard. And the intricacy of wood sometimes, if you come over here and have a look at this piece of wood over here, for instance, this is all about the wood. It's absolutely gorgeous in its grains and everything like that. So the most basic fish shape I've made in it stands for itself because of the grain. It look lovely on a wall.
So this is mottled kauri, is it?
No, that's a piece of macrocarpa.
Oh, so beautiful.
It is. Look at the seal coming up out of here. Look, see his little fin, and he's coming up out of the water. It's like a little seal. There's his eye and his wee nose and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so he's sort of coming up out of there.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. So, but it used to be a bar, but it had this wonderful grain inside it. So my friend gave it to me, so we just avoided the holes in the bar. Put a little one there, and we got this fish shape out of it, you know. Some curry, you know, gets very old, gets sort of industrialised, and the dirt gets into it, you know. That's a very, very old piece of kauri that comes off a villa built in 1898 for Dr. MacDonald, who came to the Kaipara to look after the health of the people of the Kaipara.
That's beautiful.
And so this is as near as I get to, say, Māori carving, really, of you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm in awe of the Māori carvers. They're amazing. But I'm happy with this because I've got the ocean into it and things like that. And lovely to carve because it's very straight grained. We're talking about the suitability of carving.
Right.
And I could really carve anything I like because there's no big knots to avoid or so much was scrapped. You know what I mean?
Right. Turn it into something useful and functional and beautiful.
Something a bit different. It's
Lovely.
very dusty. But, and here's a piece of remen, heart remen, which was a lot of building. All the coffins used to be made of this.
Wow.
So this piece here, I've put a bit of resin on here to hold it together because there were splits in it, and as well,
right,
it makes it look like the little eel sitting in the water, you know?
Yeah, stunning.
And it could be an infinity eel.
Yeah.
A koru is a circle, and with these chisels, you can go right round the circle. These are gouges, which actually mean curved chisel, really. And that's the number 3. It has a small curve, see? And because they lay like that, the wood comes out. And it also comes like that.
Right.
So that's a 3. So if you went round a circle, it would be a very big circle, wouldn't it? You know what I mean? That's how it starts. And as you work down, you've got a 5 here. See, it's got a bit more curve in it. So you're getting it a bit closer like that.
Oh, so that's the depth of the...
See, as we go down.
Oh, okay. So what? Okay.
That's a 7, that's a 9. So we go right round.
Okay, so it's all odd numbers?
Well, no, there's every number there, but I mean, that cost me $260.
Oh.
So, you know, there's
odd numbers.
These simple chisels here, a couple of $1,000 worth of chisels.
Right.
And if we go back to the koru here.
Where are the chisels made?
They're Swiss made.
Ah.
The Maori Institute use these chisels. But you see how they go right round?
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, and then you get back a bit further and you're around to here.
Right.
So eventually you can go right round in a circle with your chisels. You know what I mean?
Okay. So you're not going to have a straight edge. You're always going to have a curve going on.
That helps you get around those circles.
Yeah.
And then of course I'm finding new tools as people bring me into contact with new tools.
Right.
And these fishtail things are amazing. They're lightweight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And they're cool. So you can use the edge of them and cut round and things like that, you know.
Right.
If we're going to start here, I just make sure I've got this line correct. So I want to get as much of this outside in here as well, so I get the contrast. That's tough wood, so it'll come. So I'm following the grain round sort of, you know, but if I want to go back, I want to take this out. So I could cut it like this as well with one of these knives. Let me show you here. So it's a bit awkward this, I'll cut round here and I'll cut with the grain round here. So if I come round here and go like this, give me a very basic line to start with, you know.
Just to break the surface.
Well, yeah, but this wood is quite hard work, you know what I mean?
Right.
But it comes, see? That. Beautiful wood, isn't it?
Quite
That's
different underneath,
yeah.
Yeah, It's like chocolate almost.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very close grained, see? So
Yeah.
very, absolutely beautiful finish it'll have on it.
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying to you. A lot of this has been obscured with the so splitting off. It's very willful. So obviously I'm going to have to go in wider here and here. You know, you just look at it, you can see that. So,
Right.
you know, I could take out quite a bit more. I probably, just use this now. I'm just removing chaff at this moment. These aren't finished lines or anything. Or that.
Just getting the crude shape and.
Well, getting some of some of the because you're going to have to look 3D.
Yeah.
So I'm just sort of 3Ding it, you know.
Right.
So I could come back this way because I think it's a wee bit slanty there. I want a wee bit more depth there, but I've got I can keep on shifting this over to where I feel it's right. Sits there, but it's still not released, is it? So I'll come back around with this again. The more I get out of there, the more, you know, I run the curve over.
Right, start to get the dimension of it.
Yeah, it starts to look three-dimensional. Yeah, I mean, I could spend some time and just flatten it all out and that, but I don't think it needs that, you know, because it's just rough saw and it's just all very basic. And again, you can run this way like this with this piece here. You can run through here. Fragments it out there, and it doesn't really matter because that is not my good wood. I couldn't go back and do that because I'd be destroying my thing, but this piece is stuff that's coming off, you know.
Yeah.
So, and like I say, it would be far more efficient for me to cut that off a couple of times just with hand saws. I use hand saws, and then chisel it round. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The more work that you want over here, when I look at that, it's too skinny there for that because it wants to be a decreasing circle.
Right.
So I might end up. That's my finite distances because that's where it's cut. You know what I mean? That's where the thing is. So I might go around a bit more here, and that becomes a little bit more over this way. So it's a bit thicker where it comes into here. Because I want to perhaps put this in the, I'm not sure yet, I'll leave that like that. I may try to cut that out or I put it in and I may fill that and perhaps put a little bit of power or some gem in there or crystal or something like that.
Right,
You know?
use it as a feature.
Yeah, use it as a feature. Yeah.
You can't hide it, highlight it.
Often. Yeah, and the knots sometimes are beautiful. So you can leave them in things, but that's something a bit different, that one. So actually this circle that we've got right here is decreasing in size as it gets round there. It's just a matter of getting some depth into it, you know. I'll just come around here and show you a bit. This is a number 3 curve on these fishtails. These chisels you can buy online, they're beautiful chisels, they're lightweight. When we get into around here somewhere, I will be able to see the change between the two different grains. I'll take it out. I'll come back to here, I think I'll work my way back to that. The wood, it's amazingly hard to separate the wood, you know what I mean? It's strong and tenacious, it wants to, but it's bound together. Come back to that. Starting to get there. Give me my basic line. There's that lovely wood again that we're talking about, you know. And the more we get in, the more we'll see of that wood.
So did you, when you say you started when you were 7,
Yep.
did you carve continuously, or was there a sort of a gap in your life, or did you come back to it as a mature adult, or was it just
yeah, there
always
was a gap. There was a gap when I was like, yeah, 18 to mid-20s, I dare say. There was a gap in that time because, you know, I was getting married and having children, divorces.
priorities that would
Yeah, and I
shifted.
forgot about it. But once, you know, I met my present wife 46 years ago, and I stabilised, I went straight back to it. And then indeed, in fact, not all the time I gave up, because there were a couple of times when I was feeling like, you know, a bit down and a bit depressed actually, because my marriages and that weren't working. I went back to carving and that helped.
So it grounds you?
Of course it does. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, apart from anything else now, it's like my job. It's my purpose. Got to have a purpose, you know.
So
If you've got something you've been thinking about doing, do it now, you know, because at least you've given it a go, you know. You can see how this is starting to happen. Like if I come around this way now, you're following your grains away. I probably here can get back to the bigger chisel, get myself a bigger number 3 here, and I can start shifting some wood. Carving's like subtraction. You aren't carving anything that's already there, you're taking away the stuff that surrounds what you've got in there, you know what I mean? It's almost too much, not enough curve for number 3, but just shifting out of here. Because the grain runs along this way, you could usually take out this piece first, because it will split along there, see? And it splits to the point where you were going around there, and then you can sort of split it off.
So what have you learned about yourself through carving as a person?
I think carving, because it takes you away from the problems and things. It gives you the time and to understand yourself a bit better. Maybe it's hard to put into words, if you know what I mean. But it definitely makes me feel more peaceful and basic. You know.
And the fact that it's a long process is part of that.
Well, it's got patience in it, which I'm not the most patient person, so I have to be patient with this. It's also about being creative. You know, like a lot of guys haven't got a creative outlet. I think that's one of the reasons, because they haven't got creative outlets, and the fact that they're taught not to express their emotions so much is the reason that guys die before women, in a general sense, you know.
Yeah. Self-expression, and
yeah,
it's empowering to create.
And you see, the other thing is that I've never been ashamed of it, but I cry at movies and things like that as well. I cried with Jesus Christ Superstar when Mary sings "I Don't Know How to Love Him." It's just beautiful, you know. So as a guy, you know, you're not meant to do that type of thing, but this is actually the hardest part. You notice once you get down there, it starts to shift easier. But breaking it and getting down there, so you get to be able to get your sort of 3D thing. And again, going with the grain, so it doesn't split away. You can go around there and you can release this part of the stuff. Obviously, it needs more. Mostly, you're just taking high points off. Really, that's what it seems like. You know what I mean? Coming around there, that slides around with the grain quite nicely now, you see what I mean? This is using the edge to flick that little thing out in the bottom. And then I can start to look at my line and see how it is. A bit more curved out here. The big old prairie trees have got a lot of this dark hearted. You can turn your chisel over, see? I've got it around that way too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect.
You can do it different ways, you know. I'm just trying to get an exact line there, which I will enlarge on. I'll get it so my line looks good. You can draw it till you're blue in the face, but once you start cutting, you start to get that 3D effect, you know.
Right.
Um,
And just, yeah, and using different chisel sizes just to get
yeah.
cleaner edge.
See, this type of chisel, these lightweight ones, might take a little bit longer, but that'd suit a smaller person's hand.
Right.
Perhaps a feminine hand or a child's hand, fine as well, because you're not, you know, it gets, it's energy using, sure.
And is that a mallet? Is that called a mallet?
Yeah, it is. It's called a mallet, the wood mallet, yeah.
And it's always a wood mallet, wood on wood. Is that
wood on wood, yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise you just blow your chisels apart, you know.
Right.
As it is, I do blow them apart in the end.
Right.
But this is wood. Usually this, I think they used to make hickory handles and things, didn't it? You know, ash.
Yeah, it almost looks like oak too, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Maybe.
Oak's strong like that. They're strong grain, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, hickory or oak. Yeah, I think like gardening tools have hickory.
These are amazing. You know, I'd never seen these until in recent years, you know. And around the other carvers. They've got automatic carving tools now.
Wow.
This chisels just go round and round and they hold it like a but
yeah.
Nah. You know, there's a skill to using the blade, eh?
Yeah, and it's got a, you know, a meditative quality about it for sure.
Yeah. So now we get here. I'll go down a bit here. And it actually, like I say, it gets easier once you really start getting down. This ended up like this because there was a chainsaw hole in this thing.
Okay.
Right in this piece of wood, so I can't do anything about the hole, so I made it a feature. Put half a feather in there and put resin on top of it. So it's, yeah,
Cool.
that's a bit of fun. The little girl next door said, "Hugh, you've made a mouldy pirate." I said, "I have, darling." And then, of course, you know, this is just another piece of wood, and I've taken all the wood away and left the lizard there, and my mate, Gaz Jarman's painted it for me.